Today is February 3rd, 2016. It is Wednesday. Today in class, our goal was to introduce American Realism, the authors, and the movement. You were assigned homework, which was the beginning piece of The Outcasts of Poker Flats. It was an annotation and characterization assignment. And these were due at the start of class the following day, even if it is for makeup, simply because as soon as you do it, we will already be working within the text as well. So it's not something that can be done late. When we covered transcendentalism, you did have to provide evidence and support and answer the question, what is transcendentalism? You will be asked next Tuesday to come into class and respond to the question, what is realism? You do have to use 10 accurate details that support the movement. We're not concerned about time periods and dates or author's name. We want to know, what does the movement actually mean, the philosophy or the meaning behind the movement. The title of this is Realism, a Change from Imagination to the Truth. And we're going to start with the Civil War. In class, we raised the question, if you lived through a war, or any type of war, how would you think it should be presented? Early pieces of literary work would present a very romantic notion of war, bravery, courage, bright colors, brothers in arms. However, with the dawn of photography and with the dawn of American realism, the phrase war is hell is something that definitely comes up as the true gritty reality of war. And with the onset of photography, people could no longer deny the truth of that. Realism, definitely not a vocabulary word. Realism. Real men, real women, real problems. This is a realistic portrait of America and of American society. Realism spanned from around 1860 to 1913 as a movement, and within it are two other movements, regionalism and naturalism, that are naturally tied in as well. The authors that we're going to be taking a look at in class in chronological order, we're going to be reading The Outcasts of Poker Flat by Bret Harte. We're going to cover some Twain, which is a folk story. You get really depressed when we begin to cover To Build a Fire in an Episode of War, because they are dark and twisted and violent stories that definitely represent a lot about American realism. The Story of an Hour and A Wagner Matinee both take a feministic perspective of realism to show what women's lives were truly like when confronted with not much choice and the control over their destiny. The Transcendentalists believe in the importance of nature. Naturalism piggybacks off of that, but in a much darker way. Naturalism tends to be viewed as students as depressing and pessimistic. Nature is in control and valuable, and mankind is powerless, almost like a blizzard that would come over and take over power. Human nature is controlled by nature itself. Just like the Transcendentalists, this idea of instinct, emotion being very important is carried over. Here's a different belief. It's the word determinism. You'll see it on the back wall through the unit. This idea that where you were born shapes your character more than anything else. With Mr. Ruby, you read some Upton St. Clair. We will be reading some Jack London as well. You may know him for his famous novel, The Call of the Wild. He also wrote White Fang. Okay. Regionalism. After the Civil War, when the United States was definitely almost as divided as it was before the Civil War, this division was written about. Different areas of the country, like the Midwest, the Southwest, the Northwest, were each covered from each region, and these differences between the regions were celebrated. Mark Twain is probably the best known writer of regionalism with his Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and that's Mr. Green's favorite author, if you didn't know that. Mark Twain and regionalism, these beliefs span for all of naturalism. This idea that each area in the country has specific and unique features, has its own dialect and speech patterns and language. There's a great description of characters in naturalism. They are the focus of most every short story. And then Twain uses the vernacular, which is our everyday language that includes all the swear words that could be encapsulated in a time period to guide the reader through the book. Vernacular is the reason why books like The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn were banned or burned, because people didn't necessarily want the language as it was on the street. To answer the question why realism, naturalism, and regionalism came to rise at the end of that 19th century, it was in the hope that if you could show things as they truly are, you could hopefully bring about change. So if we were going to review some key concepts just from today's presentation, realism portrayed ordinary people and events, the lower class, the middle class, not like Edgar Allan Poe and his aristocracy. The camera captured reality and the importance of photography and communicating a realistic image. Naturalism carries those beliefs that we're controlled by nature. We don't have free will. Things are not in our control. Civil War will teach you that. For regionalism, make sure that you celebrate the differences in that belief. And regional dialect is something that we'll be talking about on February 4th, on Thursday. So if that helped you at all, good for you. Happy makeup work. Have a good day.